Well, for the history of Central Avenue, the 5-4 Ballroom, and all those places that I was talking about, just Google up Central Avenue, Los Angeles in the 60s. Also Google up downtown Los Angeles, 1950s, 1960s. Interesting scenarios there. What I briefly hit on before was that that was trolleys all over. That was the J car, the S car, the P car. Very efficient light rail. Well, Goodyear came to town, the tire industry, and they wanted, of course, to promote tires. So they retired the trolley cars and put on buses. That's what happened to the railway system downtown Los Angeles. Very efficient. You could catch the Avalon car, the S car, go out on Avalon right out there. Just light rail went here, 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 here. Goodyear came in and wanted buses, 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 buses. The light rail was outdated. Now it's time for modern transportation that will take you from block to block and let you off in front of your house. Buses, tires. The other sad part of that story was that when Goodyear closed, as I've mentioned several times, that was the beginning of the single-parent black family, because when Goodyear closed and the workers were out of work, they were naturally at home, but at home was not a safe place to be, because at home was where the welfare worker might come at 2 o'clock in the morning. At that time, it was unrestricted access. And she might come at 2 o'clock in the morning. And if there was a man in the house, then the woman was taken off of welfare, because the man should have been able to provide for the woman, even though the man was unemployed and the plant had closed. Didn't make any difference, because they went by the regulations. So the men, beginning being out of the house, they'd try to sleep during the day or the afternoon. So at night, they would be out in case the welfare worker came. They would be standing down on the corner, someplace around a big old drum with fire going in it, staying warm and drinking. Led to widespread alcoholism to disintegration of the family structure relationship. Mothers on welfare now, raising children. And that's how that all began. That's the socioeconomic decline in the beginning. This is back in the 60s. This is in the 60s, the 70s, the 50s and the 60s. I'm sorry, I haven't done that. But anyway, that's what happened. The music scene, back to the music scene, man. Like, on the west side, we talked about the east side, Central Avenue. That's why I said Google up Central Avenue. It's the east side. It's got all the clubs and all the history. Quite interesting. On the west side, I didn't see west side history when I Googled it up, but I lived on the west side. So on Adams and Western was a big black hotel, was actually a block up on LaSalle, but the corner of Adams and Western was another famous corner because of the Watkins Hotel. The Watkins Hotel was a major black hotel in Los Angeles. And again, when the musicians came to Los Angeles, if they didn't stay at the Dunbar Hotel, depending on where the gig was, they stayed at the Watkins Hotel on the west side. The Watkins Hotel on the west side, is what I was telling you, was Mr. Fatburger, the hamburger stand that everybody went to, and the Red Hut, the club where all the after hours people went to, the where I worked, and all up and down the street, businesses. That's the west side. The lower end of the west side, Santa Barbara Avenue, which is now Martin Luther King, 1 block over, again, from Adams, from Western and Santa Barbara, was the Melody Club. That was owned by Roy Milton, and Roy Milton's big band. Moved later to the Crenshaw area, but these were the happenings in Los Angeles at that time. Wolfman Jack was just beginning. Los Angeles. We later moved to Burbank, and in Burbank, My godfather, Willie Dixon, lived not too far from me. I met Willie Dixon during my forays in college radio in the 1970s. Went back into radio at University of California, Santa Cruz, UCSC, on KZSC. At that time, I was going back and forth picking up my own records. And I saw Chess Records, and it was a big record company in Chicago, and it had Muddy Waters and all those people on it. They sent your records to the station. You might not get them because they're on the table and they're new records and there are other DJs. So to avoid that, I went to the record distributors directly. I would go to Kent and Berkeley. I would go to the different places where they just gave me the records for my show. One of those places was Chess Records in Chicago. Well, in Chicago at Chess Records, I met James Cotton, Junior Wells, Buddy Guy, Muddy Waters, Pine-Top Perkins, the Chitlin Circuit. And for those of you that don't know what the Chitlin Circuit is, it's the juke joints. It's not the high-class establishments, but it's in the neighborhoods in the different towns. And the reason they call it the Chitlin Circuit is because back in the day, when the people were really, really poor, chitlins was one of the main staples because the stores and the packing houses would throw them away or sell them for very cheap, and the people would clean them and eat them. So that's why it was called a chitlin circus. You could always get a bowl of chitlins over here, if nothing else, or some beans. Well, having worked at Chitlin Circuit in radio, it's a Chitlin Circuit in radio, all the small towns, I was looking at what's happening on the other side of town, which was jazz. Los Angeles, we're talking about now. Los Angeles in the 60s. Shirley's Manhole was one of the main jazz places. Andre Plevin, Shirley Mann, and I can't remember who the other person was, the bass player. I almost said it. But anyway, that was Shirley's Manholes was one of the jazz places. The Hollywood Palladium, where all the big bands, the Tommy Dorsey's went, and occasionally the black bands, the Duke Ellingtons and the Count Basses. The restaurants, the Brown Derby. This is old Hollywood. Hollywood at that time was nothing like Hollywood today. It was Hollywood. It was very, very segregated. The roles were very, very limited. We hired on a lot as extras. And as extras sometimes in the African movies, well, like our lines would be "Ugga boo boo ugga, ugga boo boo." Or did you say "Ugga boo 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 ugga"? And somebody else would just make another sound. Wasn't speaking nothing. Just hired on supposed to be African, and that was the roles that they gave us to play. Leading roles, drama? No. Look at the comedy. Look at Charlie Chan, one of the famous, Chinese detective movies and look at Mantan Moreland, big-eyed, running around, scared, feet don't leave me now, step and fetch it. Yowza, I'm a-coming. The roles that were available. And the people that had them, I don't envy them because they were in Hollywood and they were making money. But for the rest of us, it was good to see us up on the screen, but that's how we were portrayed. And that's part of the Hollywood thing. So I think my career in radio really has spanned many, 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 many years. I've been broadcasting I'm 87 now. And it's scattered as shot, as we call it, scattershot, as what I just told you was. It's my life. It was scattered like that. For us black DJs, I said to myself many times, well, here's Pat Henry, an example, not just Pat Henry, putting him out just as a person I know, that's been in broadcasting for X number of years, has a nice retirement, has a family, has a home, And we started broadcasting at the same time. And I never got hired by a station that would keep me for longer than a 2-year contract because they wanted to keep us turning over as personality radio. I mean, I would like to have been in radio as a broadcasting announcer. I went to school for radio broadcasting announcing at Laney Trade Tech. So I wasn't just a disc jockey. I was a radio announcer, a broadcaster, but they weren't hiring black broadcaster radio announcers. You wanted a job? Go over there to the black station where they're playing the black music. Over here, best you're going to be as program director. The program director is HNIC, the head nigger in charge. He's in charge of all the other DJs that come into the station and all. He's the black boss under the white boss. Well, that's fine, but that's as far as you're going to go, and that's not going to keep you at that station because they rotate program directors too. And where's your retirement, and where's all the things that all these other people that have been in radio have? So I mean, it's a lot to look at. Well, that's a part of my life. Eventually, I got to the place where I was able to do my own, promote my own, be my own, form my own corporation, and had the privilege of doing that and covering the Ford Dole presidency with my own press credentials at the Black Desk, at the Republican Convention, the Democratic Convention, and overcoming, just overcoming. I don't know where else to go. I can stop here.